Und in sein Pesach, sie am Merkgeschliches, sie in der Heim, sie bei Balabas, wo nur das ist, darf man machen die größte Sturm, wenn ich gewusst, wenn ich der Haggadah. Das ist eine Sache. Nur, wir machen es später. Akaponim, der Sache von den Proclamations, haben wir irgendwann Schluchim in Alaska. Und befragt der Schliach, Mandy Greenberg, was gemacht hat, eine größte Sturm 10 Jahre zurück. Mit seinen Gewehren, mit alle seinen Gewehren, was es abschlich ist. So machen Wunder, sie leben, also sie haben den Scholle, alle Star, Chasmenen, auf meine Gehe, die Chshivus von Yom HaChinuch. Und wir haben jetzt die Gelegenheit zu beten. Der Schliach Roshi, Schliach von Rebbe, in Medinas Alaska, was alle wissen, alle kennen, von der Haupt Askonim, von der Spitzgebahn und alle Sachen. Und manchmal sein später mit allen Schwachen, Harav, Yosef, Yitzchak Greenberg, soll geben uns zu verstehen ein bisschen, die Gadlus von dem Tag von Yud Alef Nissan. Chaim.
Chaim. L'chaim. Yud Alef Nissan. Everyone knows that I'll speak a mix of Yiddish and English. Everybody knows that the first book the Rebbe published is the book of Ayem Yem. The Rebbe opens the book of Ayem Yem with a quote from the Rabbinish Rashab, from the Rabbinish Moseden. Where the Rabbinish Moseden wrote in a letter, the Yutes Kislev is the day of Eve Chayis Nafsheinu Nitan Lanu. That if we're looking for an explanation, what is Yud Alef Nissan, there's no better explanation than the concept of V'chayis Nafsheinu Nitan Lanu. As the Rebbe explains the famous Sikha in Zayin Oder about Moshe Rabbeinu, that when Moshe Rabbeinu was born, Ismale Abayis Kule Eiro, and therefore it was so strong that was able to be mevatel the gzeire of Purim. Because by Moshe Rabbeinu, when Haman made the gzeire of Purim, Haman was happy that this is the day that Moshe Rabbeinu, Zayin Oder, passed away. But Haman did not know that Moshe Rabbeinu was born on that day. And that Kedai Yem HaLeide, Lechaper, to overcome the Yem HaIstalkus, because that when Moshe Rabbeinu was born, there was a Bayis Mole Eiro. That the entire home became a new light. And as the Rebbe explains, that the light that came from Moshe Rabbeinu, it was such a light that came at the second he was born, before they gave him the name Moshe, before he gave the Torah. That's his real Inyan, the Inyan from light. And the Rebbe even says that the house of Amram, who was the Nosi Hadeir, is like Gabe this, Lagabe the house, the light of Moshe Rabbeinu, the house of Amram was considered not light. It was like as if it was Cheshech, Lagabe the air from Moshe Rabbeinu. As is well known, before the Rebbe was born and after he was born, the Rebbe Rashab sent telegrams to the Rebbe Levi Yitzchak with a roes, with instructions what to do, how to handle the Rebbe's later. And that's very similar to what we know from the Sichos from the Frierdiker Rebbe about the Baal Shem Tov. The B'Shas the Alter Rebbe was born, the Baal Shem Tov gave a roes before the Alter Rebbe was born, and after he was born, he gave special a roes. Because the Alter Rebbe said that the Baal Shem Tov is an Neshama Chadosha who will bring a new light to the world, the night and Nigler and Nister. So similar, the Rebbe Rashab sent telegrams to the Rebbe Levi Yitzchak with heroes how to handle the Rebbe's later before he was born and after he was born. By the way, there is a very famous story that the Rebbe Tzelchane said, shh, just a little bit. Shh. Shh. Shah Stiller. Shh. Calm down a little bit. We have a whole night to verbring. Calm down a little bit. You want to make sure that the people who are watching all over the world could also enjoy a te'ime from Verbringen. So calm down, you have a whole night here. Shh. Chaim l'chaim. Shh. So the Rebbe Tzemchane told the story to Reb ניסן Gordon that the Reb Levi Yitzchak gave her a special eroe benegate to the Rebbe, that from the second he was born, whenever she fed the Rebbe, she should wash his hands. And the Rebbe Tzemchane said that the Rebbe, Reb Levi Yitzchak, never told her about the other children this eroe. It was unique to the Rebbe. And it's interesting, there is a letter from Rabbi Yosel Weinberg from Tovshin Yud, because on Meitzoi Simchas Torah Tovshin Yud Alef, the Rebbe told Rabbi Yosel Weinberg, Bakeshel Broche, which is a half a year before Kabbalas HaNesios, the Rebbe told Rabbi Yosel Weinberg to write a letter to Rabbi Yirmiyah Eloi in South Africa to tell him what's going on here when it gets to the Kabbalas HaNesios, what's happening. So Rabbi Yosel Weinberg wrote an amazing letter of 5 pages, And in that letter, he tells a story. And the story is about that in Beis Harav, they are talking, in Tov Shin Yud, in Beis Harav, they are talking about the story that the Rebbe Tzimchane always washed the Rebbe's hands before he ate. And that in Beis Harav, they in such a spoilers from that story, that they were waiting till the Rebbe Tzimchane will come in America to ask her to confirm that it's true, that it was true that she washed the Rebbe's hands every time before he ate. Which everyone understands what it means. The Rebbe was born on Friday. Everyone understands what it means in a little shtetl in Ukraine in 125 years ago to wash the hands with cold water to a little baby who was just born every 2 hours to eat. And it's amazing that in Beis Harav, and the Rebbe Tzimchane confirmed that, the Beis Harav was full of his spoilers. And then they said in Tov Shin Yud, so Yud Alef Nissan is the day that Chayis Nafsheinu Nita Lonu, that the light and the life of our lives was given to us. And as the Rebbe says, that every year there is a new light in the world. What was that light? The Rebbe says every Yemel Hedes, every year, there is a new light that comes to the world. Because Mazole gave her, and there is a new Isgalus of the Rebbe in the world. What was that light of the Rebbe that we never could have enough? We always watch the Rebbe again and again and again. We could never have enough of watching the Rebbe. What was that light? The Rebbe Tzimchane says in our Zichrenes that when the Rebbe was a little child, whenever she took the Rebbe anywhere, everybody came to look on him. Even when he went to Cheder, whenever there was anything happening with the Rebbe, she said, everyone looked on him and everyone came to him. Even though the Rebbe himself ran away from it. He didn't want everyone to look on him. But everybody came to see him. Many years ago, guys, Many years ago, I had a visit in Alaska from the president of the Yeshiva University, Rabbi Noam, maybe 25 years ago. And he came with his wife and his sister-in-law. And I took them someplace to show them around. And then they were sitting in the car. There was a problem with the car, Lubavitch car. There was a problem. We went down from a mountain. So we stopped the car for a while. And I was talking to Rabbi Lamb. And I hear in the back of the car that Rabbi Noam Lamb's wife and her sister are talking to my children. And what are they telling to my children? They were very little. They told my children that they used to live in Crown Heights in the 1940s, in the Sheens. And they remember when the Rebbe used to walk in the streets of Crown Heights, the Rebbe used to go to the printer or something what the Rebbe needed, that everybody would come out of the houses and on the porches to watch the Rebbe. And he looked, they said those words that they said, well, ladies who lived in Crown Heights in the 40s, they said he looked like a prince. Everybody came out to watch him. This is from people who are not Lubavitchers at all. And it was just like by Yosef HaTzadik, it says that everyone stood on the walls of the Chema to watch him. Everybody came to watch the Rebbe. There was a light that shined from the Rebbe that attracted everyone. Relax a little bit. The Rebbe Tzimchane, in our memories, the Rebbe Tzimchane says how she writes, the Rebbe was just visiting her. And she said, when the Rebbe came to my apartment, the apartment looked so huge and so big. When the Rebbe was in my apartment, that's the Rebbe Tzilchana, the mother of the Rebbe. Said the Rebbe came to my apartment, my small apartment, it looked so big for the 10 minutes he was there. And then when he left, it looked again small. That's what we saw in 770. When the Rebbe was there, everything looked the light of the Rebbe. Everybody who had the schus to see the Rebbe was attached to the Rebbe like a magnet. I remember the first time I came to see the Rebbe in Tov Shel Lamed Vov. I was a little boy, 11 years old. I came Vov Tishrei. The first time I saw the Rebbe, the first Yom Kippur, I was standing behind the Rebbe. I was watching the Rebbe non-stop. I was like, the Rebbe was like a magnet. I couldn't believe what I'm seeing. It was the light of the Rebbe. And the question is, what is that light? What is that? The light of the Rebbe that we couldn't see, the Nismale Abayis Kula Eiro, that the entire world was filled with the Rebbe's light. What is it? But as the Rebbe starts the Hayem Yem with the words of the Rebbe Nishmas Eden, that special light of the Rebbe is the light of Chassidus. What is the light of Chassidus, of Pnimis HaTeirah? That started with the Baal Shem Tov and the Alter Rebbe till the Rebbe. As Mashiach said to the Baal Shem Tov, that through the Afotzas HaMayones Chutzo from Chassidus, Mashiach will come. What is that light of Chassidus that will bring Mashiach? And as the Rebbe says, Mischoro Neida Mehuso, from the schar of spreading Chassidus, what is the schar? What is the reward to bring Mashiach? Mischoro Neida Mehuso, from the schar will know what is Chassidus. And as the Alter Rebbe says in Likutei Torah, and the Rabbeim say it later in the Maimorim, and the Rebbe says in his Maimorim, that the inyan for Chassidus is the inyan for Mashiach. Chassidus is quoting in the Likutei Torah, the Alter Rebbe brings the Arizal. Shh, guys, relax. Shh. You have all night, relax. A bissel Mesiras Nefesh for andere Yidden. A little Mesiras Nefesh for other Jews who are watching, who want to hear a word. They are not sitting here for bringing. Let them also have a taste of what is Yud Alef Nissan. Relax a little bit. Shh. Chassidus is quoting the Arizal. The Arizal said that all the Giluim of Elikus in Elam Hazeh from Odom Arishan until Mashiach, they all come from Chitzenius Atik. And Mashiach will be Megale Pnimius Atik. What is Atik? Everybody who learned Chassidus, everybody who is here from Yeshiva, learned Chassidus, knows that there are the Esser Spheres that start with Chochmeh, and above the Esser Spheres there is Keser, which is Atik and Arich, Rotzen and Tainug. And Chassidus explains that even in Atik, there are two dargahs, two levels. Atik means that's an attack from the world, that's above the world, that's away from the world, and Arich means that's Nimshach in the world. So Chassidus is masbir that even in Tainug itself, there is Pnimis and Chitzenius, and what is the Pnimis? Like by every person, the Pnimis is the Seichel. Chochmeh bin a da'at, nobody knows what you're thinking. That's your Pnimis, you're hiding to yourself. So Chassidus says that all the Giluim, including Matan Teire and the Beis HaMikdash Rishon, Beis HaMikdash Sheni, all the Giluim that were in Elam Hazeh, they were all from Chitzenis Atik. Only when Mashiach will come, will be the Giluim from Pnimius Atik. What is the reason that there was a Churban Beis HaMikdash? Why there was a Chet Egel? Beis HaMikdash Rishon was destroyed, the Sheni was destroyed. Why is it? Because the Giluim from Elikus in the world were only from Chitzenis Atik. Therefore, they are not Nitzchi. Only when Mashiach will come, the Beis HaMikdash HaShlishi will be the Giluim from Pnimius Atik. And when the Alter Rebbe said, when Atik is Nisgale, Enle Hefsek, nothing could stop it. Because that is Nitzchi. And that is the meaning what the Baal Shem Tov said, that the Alter Rebbe was a Neshama Chadosha. It was a new soul that comes to the world. And as the Rebbe explained, what is a Neshama Chadosha? It means a Gilui from Pnimius Atik. That's the Gilui of Neshama Chadosha. That's why the Alter Rebbe was Megale Chassidus Chabad. And as the Rebbe said in Pasha Shmini, but if I bring in of Tovshin Yud Beis, the Chassidim gave it a name Shabbos HaGodel. The Rebbe said that the Alter Rebbe was Mamshich Anayes von Atzmos. He was Mamshich something new from Atzmos that never existed before. He is the new Gilui of Mashiach in the world. And the Rebbe said that the Rebbe was Mamshich, let the race of Achov, that all the generation of the Rabbeim, they are the same Gilui of Pnimius Atik, but that is the Gilui Atzmos. And that's the reason why, by us spreading Chassidus in the world, why we will bring Mashiach, because Chassidus is the first Gilui of Mashiach in the world. It starts with Seichel, with Chochmah, and b'shas every Jew in the world will learn Chassidus, Mashiach will come. Because that Chassidus prepares the world for Mashiach. And that is Nimshach by all the Rabbeim, because every Rebbe, the Rebbe said, is a Male Mokem of the previous Rebbe, and is a Male everything the previous Rebbe had. And as the Rebbe said, that the Friedrich Rebbe said about the Rebbe Rashab, Nishmosei bi, that his neshama is in me, and the Rebbe said about the Friedrich Rebbe Nishmosei bi, which means that all the Rabbeim are the same neshama. Each Rebbe had a different aspect of the spheres. The Alter Rebbe was spheres HaChochmeh, and the Rebbe is spheres HaMalchus. And that's why the Rebbe's Inyan is bringing Mashiach here lemato, because what is spheres HaMalchus? What is Spheres HaMalchus? Those of you who know a little bit Chassidus, the Rebbe says in Amayim Yitaskisev Tovshich Obey, the Rebbe says that the Nekudas, when you learn Aleph Beis, there is Nekudas. The Nekudas have a meaning in Kabbalah and Chassidus. So the Rebbe says that all the Nekudas are different from each other. Komets is different than Pasach. Tzeret is 2 Nekudas. Segel is 3 Nekudas. But there is one Nekuda that is the same. 2 Nekudas look exactly the same. Which one is it? The Chirik and the Chelam. They're 1 Nekuda. But what's the difference? The Chirik is at the bottom and the Chelam is on top. Why? Because the Chirik represents Spheres HaMalchus. The Spheres HaMalchus is the last one. But when Mashiach will come, Spheres HaMalchus is Eile Had HaKeser. She goes all the way up, and she's Eicher from all the spheres. She goes in Pnimis HaKeser. And that's the Dagi of the Rebbe. Therefore, Zayin Inyan is to bring Mashiach Bepeil. As the Rebbe announced in the Maimer of Bossi Legani, that is Inyan to bring the Giloya Atzmos in the world, Avaye Imlech Le'elam Voed, to bring it in the world. That's the inner from Gilui Chide from Mashiach. Chaim, Lachaim. Shh. Relax, relax. That is the biur that the Rebbe says in Bosele Gani Tovshin Yud Alef. The Rebbe says that there are 7 generations that started with the Alter Rebbe, like Moshe Rabbeinu was Deir Shvi from Avram Avinu. The same thing the Rebbe, the Deir Shvi from the Alter Rebbe. So what is the pshat in that? We all know also that the Rebbe said about the Ushpizin, that the Zayar said there are 7 Ushpizin, Avram, Yitzchak, Yankov, David, and Shlomo, and Yosef. Comes the Rebbe Rashab and says there are Chassidish Ushpizin, the Baal Shem Tov, the Magi, the Alter Rebbe. What does that mean? What does that mean? We have a different Torah, we have another Ushpizim, we have another 7th generation. What does that mean? But the biur is very simple. Our Ushpizin are the pnimius of the Shpizin of the Zayar. And our Shiva Deres are the pnimius of the Shiva Deres from Avram Avinu to Moshe Rabbeinu. Because the Giluim from Avram Avinu to Moshe Rabbeinu is the Giluim for Chitzenis Atik. And the Giluim from the Alter Rebbe and the Rebbe is the Giluim from Pnimius Atik. That's the Pnimius of that. It's not a new thing. It's the Pnimius of it. And therefore the Baal Shem Tov said that when the Alter Rebbe's Neshama came to the world, she had a Haftoche that the Eibishter promised the Alter Rebbe's Neshama that her Chassidus will be Nitzchi till Mashiach. Why? Because since this is a Gilui of Pnimius Atik, is Atik and Le Hefsek. Nothing could stand in the way of Atik. That's Gilui Atzmus. So when we say, as Eve Chayes Nafsheinu Nitan Lono Yud Alef Nissan, that means that the highest level of Gilui Lekus in the world was Nizgale on Yud Alef Nissan Tov Reish Samech Beis. And that Gilui Lekus from Pnimius Atik goes on, and nothing could stop it. And every Yud Alef Nissan is getting stronger and stronger and stronger. There is a very famous story that the Rebbe told Rabbi Gottlieb to take it out of Tedes Levi Yitzchok. Shh. In Tedes Levi Yitzchok, Rabbi Naftali Gottlieb had a big schus that he was the first one that he wrote a book about Rebbe Levi Yitzchok, and in the book he has a chapter about the Rebbe. It was the first time there was a Tildes of the Rebbe. And he sent the book to the Agoy about the Rebbe. There were 3 pages the Rebbe said, Muchach lahashmit. You must take it out. And what was in those pages? Shh. Shh. Guys, mered v'gereb, relax. Believe me, you have something you could learn. Relax. Shh. Believe me, it will help you. Relax. So the Rebbe said there are 3 pages that Naftali Gottlieb heard stories about the Rebbe, Shvochim Neiroim about the Rebbe. And the Rebbe said those 3 pages, Muchach lahashmit. One of the stories in those 3 pages was a story that Reb Simcha Gorodetsky said, told the story. Shh. It will help you in life. Believe me, listen. Shh. The story Simcha Gorodetsky said was that that he became very sick. You'll have to suffer till the end, I must tell you. That will be your little bit of skafia. Believe me, it will help you in life. Listen. Shh. So Simcha Gorodetsky tells the story that when he was a young bocher, he became very sick. And Reb Chatzke Fagin went with him to the doctor. And the doctor checked him out, and the doctor said to him, leave, I want to talk to your mashpia. And Reb Chatzke Fagin came in, and the doctor told him that this bocher is very sick, and he only has a few months to live. So Chatzke Fagin said to the bocher that I need to talk to the Rebbe. So Simcha Gorodetsky heard from behind the door what the doctor said. He was no fool. He listened in. He said, I'll go to the Rebbe. So he went. So Chatzke Fagin said, I'll go first on Yechidus, and then you'll go. So Reb Chatzke Fagin went first on Yechidus, and he told the Friedrich Rebbe, the doctor said that he has only a few months to live. And then came in Simcha Gorodetsky. So the Friedrich Rebbe looked at Simcha Gorodetsky, and he said, I think that the doctor thinks that for you, the Seder of Techet Mimim is not going to work for you, of 8 hours Nigle and 4 hours Chassidus. But I'm going to give you another Seder. And your Seder will be to go and travel and fundraise money for Techet Mimim. And that will be your refuah. So he traveled. One of the first places he went was to Yekaterinoslav, to Rebbe Levi Yitzchok. It's an old story how Rebbe Levi Yitzchok took him to the bank, and he sat down in the middle of the bank, and every gvir who came in, Rebbe Levi Yitzchok called him over, and he told him how much to write on his check for Techet Mimim. And when he finished, Rebbe Levi Yitzchok said, you see, that's how you fundraise money. And he spent the whole week in Rebbe Levi Yitzchok's house, and the Rebbe was in the house. And Rebbe Levi Yitzchok was in the summer. He had a minhag every night. He was saying Torah, and the Rebbe was sitting on the other side of the table, and Rebbe Levi was talking. And they invited Simcha Gorodetsky to be part of it. Shh. Chaim. Shh. Guys, relax a little bit. Even my balabatim listen when I speak. Relax a little bit. So, every night, Reb Levi Yitzchok used to sit and speak Kabbalah and Chassidus, hours. And Simcha Gorodetsky was sitting on the table. So one night, it was like 1 o'clock in the morning, and Simcha Gorodetsky was very tired. So he was looking for a way out. He said, what's the time now? So Reb Levi Yitzchok said to the Rebbe, what is the time? So the Rebbe looked up to the sky, he looked on the moon and on the stars, and the Rebbe said it's about 10 to 2. So Simcha Gorodetsky was in a shock. He never saw somebody tell the time from looking at the stars. So he had a burning in him, he must go into the house to see what the time is. So he waited 5 minutes, and then he said, I need to make Asher Yotzar. I need to go to the house. So he goes to the house, he runs in, he looks on the clock, that's exactly the way the Rebbe said. So he comes back out, and he hears Reb Levi is laughing, on his voice, laughing. And he comes out, the Reb Levi says, "Hast nicht geglaubt?" Yeah, they're going to prove. You didn't believe the Rebbe. You went to check on the clock. Everything the Rebbe did is the Rebbe, everything that's happening with the Rebbe from day one is unbelievable and something that we cannot even imagine. The Rebbe is Pele Aderes, is the wonder of the generations. And therefore, every Indian of the Rebbe was a Pele, and it took 50 years to understand it. And that's why we see the big wonder. That we see how Mazole Gever from the Rebbe from every year is becoming stronger and stronger. Even we see how throughout the 40 years of the Rebbe's Nesias, the President of the United States did not come to see the Rebbe. But Dafke now, 30 years after Gimmel Tammuz, the President came to the Oil. And we see the President of Argentina, Albania, a bunch of presidents and ministers are coming to the Oil. So we see how the Rebbe's work. same thing about Chassidus, to spread Chassidus. Everyone knows the Rebbe used to say it, B'Shem from the Alten Rebbe. It's a letter from the Friedrich Rebbe from Yud Kislev of Shin Yud. Shh. The Chassidus is not a maflege. The Chassidus is meant for all the Eden. And the Rebbe was begging the Chassidim to be spreading Chassidus. And there are letters in the Igres how the Rebbe said we sent Sporim for Chassidus. And they're sitting in a basement, in a locker, and they're sitting there and nobody is touching them. And nobody understood the chshivas and the importance of spreading Chassidus. I could tell you a story that I had 20 years ago. I had by me in Alaska a very famous judge, a very famous personality in Israel. His name was Eliakim Rubinstein. He was the secretary of the government of 4 prime ministers. And he came to my house for a Shabbos. And he tells me when he was after his wedding, he said he walked in the street, he saw a bocher selling book of Chassidus. And he bought a book, Sefer HaMaimorim from the Friedrich Rebbe, Tovshin Yud, Tovshin Yud Alef, because he likes Yiddish, he knows Yiddish. And he said to me, every Friday night he read from the Friedrich Rebbe Sichas. Here is a man who was involved, one of the main people involved in the peace process of Egypt. He was the secretary of the government of 4 prime ministers. He bought a book. We didn't understand the chshivas of selling Sifrei Chassidus. We don't know who is going to buy that and who is going to see it. And now, after Gimmel Tammuz, we see the spread of Chassidus in the world. Just look on Yud Kislev in Israel, where they bring 100,000 Jews to learn Chassidus and to buy from Chassidus. The spread of Chassidus, the Chassidus on Eretz, is just unbelievable that we never saw before Gimmel Tammuz. The same thing is about the Indian from Shtochim, that everybody knows. Relax a little bit. Everybody knows the Rebbe spoke Shabbos Bereshis Tovshin Nun Aleph about the Yalkut Shimeni, that Melech Poras is going to have a war with Melech Arvi. And the Rebbe said that Melech Poras goes about Saddam Hussein. And then the Rebbe added in Ksav Kodesh that Poras is Kalel, the Shetach of Iraq, because the agent Poras, agent Portia, included also Iraq. And nobody understood what the Rebbe meant with that. And then in Chavches Tishrei, Tovshin and Beis, when Ron Nachman, the mayor of Ariel, came to the Rebbe, and he asked the Rebbe what to say in America about how to explain the chshivas, the importance of Israel's security. So the Rebbe said to him to say to American leaders that the Ispashtus of Iran and Syria, the spread of Iran and Syria is very dangerous, not only to Israel, maybe even more to America. This was 34 years ago, 34 years ago, Tovshin and Beis. And nobody understood then what the Rebbe is talking. Why after Saddam Hussein fell, and the Rebbe spoke about the Nisim, the Rebbe says the spread of Iran and Syria is very dangerous, not only for Israel, but also for America. And it took 30 years to see how Iran spread it in the entire Middle East, if it's Iraq, if it's the Houthis in Yemen, if it's the Lebanon, if it's Hamas, if it's Syria, they be spread all over exactly the way the Rebbe said, the spread of Iran and Syria. And now we see how the leaders of the United States and the leaders of Israel are doing what the Rebbe want them to do to stop the spread of Iran and Syria. The same thing is about the Indian from Shlichus. When we started Chavches Sivan, we had the schus to start the Yom Tov Chavches Sivan in Tovshim and Vov. We asked Rabbi Fogelman to come and speak by the Fabring in Motzei Shabbos. Rabbi Fogelman tells the story The Rebbe in Tov Shins, the Rebbe was sitting by Farbrengen with the Bochim, and the Rebbe said that the Rebbe, the Shver, started with Mesibe Shabbos, and from that will conquer the whole world. Nobody understood. It looked like literally like a dream. How could you? The Mesibe Shabbos was like, in those days in Kornitz, Kornitz was full with Jews, and there are many synagogues. Almost. There was many synagogues, and it's fine. And those days there was many synagogues in Kornitz, and Bochum used to collect kids to say Mesibe Shabbos. And the Rebbe said with the Mesibe Shabbos will conquer the world. And today we see how there are shluchim all over the world. I call upon him, as I would like to finish, to conclude, we see, relax. Today we see that every Indian the Rebbe asked was niskayim bepeil. One more example, the Yom HaChinuch, the Education and Sharing Day that the Rebbe started in Tov Shel Lamed Ches. And Chofov, the Rebbe said clearly that now that the president in Yud Alef Nissan made the Yom HaChinuch, the Rebbe asked that every city and every state and every shchune should make a Yom HaChinuch. And the Rebbe spoke about the importance of it. And for 25 years, in the beginning, everybody ran around to do Yom HaChinuch. One more minute, I'll finish. Shh. But now, 20 years after Gimmel Tammuz, a young shliach from Alaska started, because for many years nobody did it, because after Gimmel Tammuz everybody was lost. Even in Washington people were thinking, should we do Yom HaChinuch and Yud Alef Nissan? Doesn't make sense after these talkos. And 20 years later, a young shliach in Alaska started Yom HaChinuch. And now every state and every city is doing it, and we see a meredike peule, and it's mamish, the way the Rebbe said, it's making teves. That is the light of the Rebbe in the world. This light, as the Rebbe said, from the day I went to Cheder, and even before that, I started to have in my mind the old plan of Mashiach. And that went on throughout the years, the plan for Mashiach, to bring Mashiach in the world. As we all know, Yud Shvat Tavshin Yud Alef, but the Maimer, the Rebbe gave a plan how to bring the Derech Shvi, to bring Mashiach Dolamato. And I'll just finish off with one nekude. The Ine for Mashiach started more Yud Shvat Tavshin Lamed, the Rebbe said the Mashiach Sefer Torah. And then in Tavshim and Beis, the Rebbe started with Tish Nas Bias Mashiach. The Rebbe wrote it in Kislev. And then again, little by little, the Rebbe started in it from Yom Mashiach now, and so on and on. But then something happened on Chavches Nisan. Chavches Nisan, there was a siche that shook everybody up. And what the Rebbe said on Chavches Nisan, the Rebbe said of Chavches Nisan, the Rebbe shook up the entire Lubavitch. And as we all know, as Rebbe Yael said, when he came to America, after these talkers of the Friedrich Rebbe, he went over to the Rebbe 2 weeks before Pesach. He asked the Rebbe, should he do 1 day Yom Tov or 2 days Yom Tov? And he said to the Rebbe, he's thinking to go back to Israel because there was a Istalkus. And the Rebbe told them, the Rebbe hat alles gewusst. And if the Rebbe told you that you should come to America, he knew there will be a stalkers, and he didn't manage to come for 2 weeks. And as the Rebbe said in the Siches, the Rebbe hat alles bewohnt. In Yud Alef Nissan, Tovshin Lamed Beis, the Shnas HaShivim, there's a famous interview of the Rebbe in the New York Times. And in that interview, the New York Times editor asked the Rebbe, what? He said to the Rebbe, you are 70 years old, you have no children, who will be the 8th Rebbe? And the Rebbe answered him a few answers. One, the Rebbe said, to leave all the worries for Mashiach. Then the Rebbe said, we don't have to push it off to tomorrow, Mashiach come today. But then the Rebbe said something that only a Rebbe could say, a boss of Adam cannot say. The Rebbe said, I plan to live many more years. And then the Rebbe said, there is much more work to be done than the 120 of one person, and now we are Kuf Chav Dalet, Kuf Chav Hey. The same thing by the Yechidus, Rabbi Feldman, the Rebbe said the same thing. Rabbi Feldman came to the Rebbe from Sydney, Australia, in Tovshin Lamed Beis, and he said to the Rebbe told them that Rabbi Abramson should continue, the grandfather of his wife, should continue to be the Rav, the Av Bezdin in Sydney. And he said to the Rebbe, but he's already 70 years old, he's too old. And then he realized the Rebbe is 70, and he became red on his face, and the Rebbe smiled, the Rebbe said, I am also 70 and I have plans to live 10 more years and another 10 years. That means everything that's happening with the Rebbe is in his full control. So the question is, what happened of Ches Sivan that shook up the entire Kahal Chassidim? As we all know, the Rebbe said that of Ches Sivan something which was so out of the box that people came up with strange ideas. Shh. I'm mamish finishing. Relax. Shh. 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 Relax. Shh. Shh. Hey, Bocha, the mic is not working. The mic is not working. L'chaim. They cut me off. Shh. L'chaim. What's going to be? You cut it off? Em gaat goed aan mij. We nikken tegen hem nikken. Oké. L'chaim. Shh. Anigen. Veya bepnei Mashiach. Mogineinu reyei elekim, veya bepnei Mashiach. He'll survive. Mogineinu reyei elekim, veya bepnei Mashiach. I would really like to conclude with one word. Shh. Shh. It'll be very important for you. Believe me, it will help you in your life. Relax. Shh. The Rebbe said, Chavches ניסן, that everything I did was lehevel v'lorik, and therefore the Rebbe said, I want to have 10 people who will be stubborn, 10 akshanim who will be stubborn, and they will ask the Eibishter to bring Mashiach, and they will pay by the Eibishter to bring Mashiach. Shh. It's working, Mike? It's working? Shh. Shh. There was one guy from Anash who wrote to the Rebbe a very, very interesting letter. Shh. I don't know if you heard about it. There was a guy from Anash, doesn't matter his name. He was a big activist. He was very mikurev to the Rebbe. And after the Rebbe said he wants to have 10 akshonim, 10 people be stubborn who will ask the Eibishter to bring Mashiach, so he wrote to the Rebbe a letter. And his letter he wrote to the Rebbe that he wants to take 10 people, convince 10 people, 9 people in addition to him, and they should all lock themselves up in a house, and they should all fast every day, 10 years fasting, and they should all separate themselves from their families, from their wife, from their children, and they should be sitting in the house like the Chavraya of the Rashbi, and like the Chavraya Kaddish of the Baal Shem Tov, and they will be davening and learning the Rebbe Sichos all day long till Mashiach will come. Shh. Shh. So the Rebbe answered him, and he asked the Rebbe should give them a gartel. They said they want the Rebbe to give him a gartel, that this should be a chayfetz kedusha to make sure that they don't do something wrong. So the Rebbe answered on the fact that he said to make tiniest, to fast. The Rebbe said, "Arei ze le seder shechsidim." The chassidus is against fasting. So how dare you think that you're going to bring Mashiach with drachim, which is not the Rebbe's drachim? Then the Rebbe said about what he said, that they should all sit together and be separated from the world and separated from the people, from their wives and their families, and daven and pray. So the Rebbe said that all Iyah for Mashiach is the opposite. They should be in Klal Yisrael, with Simcha. So the whole thing doesn't make any sense. So the question is, what did the Rebbe want when the Rebbe said should be 10 akshonim, 10 people who will be stubborn to bring Mashiach? What the Rebbe meant with that? Shh. So I'm just finishing with that the Rebbe, I listen to a maimer from time to time. I have a special taiva to listen to the Rebbe's maimorim, and I suggest everybody to have that taiva. Every day I try to listen to a maimer or a sicha from the Rebbe. So I listened to a maimer from Tavshin Chav Gimmel, Purim Chav Gimmel. And when I listened to the maimer, I said, this might be the answer what the Rebbe meant with the akshanim, with the people who are stubborn. What the Rebbe meant with that. And when you think about it, the Rebbe said, what the Rebbe said? In the end words, the Rebbe said, 10 Jews are coming together, and it's possible Mashiach, it didn't come yet. And the Rebbe said the word, if 10 akshanim will ask the Rebbe for Mashiach to come, so maybe that will help, that we will be zeiche. And the Rebbe said the words, Am kshe'erev hu, v'salachto laveneinu l'chatoseinu l'chaltonu. Am kshe'erev, like you see here, the Am kshe'erev. So the Rebbe said those words. What the Rebbe meant, so the Rebbe asked the question on Maimer. Chassidus is asking, what does it make sense? Moshe Rabbeinu says to the Eibishter, Salachto laveneinu, because Am kshe'erev. That's the opposite. If they're kshe'erev, they shouldn't be salachto. Why should be salachto? So the Rebbe explains in the Maimer that Moshe Rabbeinu said to the Eibishter, You have a whole night to verbring. Relax. Shh. I know there are 2 other speakers, but I want to make it easier for them. So I want to calm you down before they come. Shh. Okay. Shh. Okay, mamish, one word. Shh. Relax, relax. One word. Shh. The Rebbe says in the Maimer, listen, I vote for Rebbe. Shh. The Rebbe says there is a difference between a Molech and all the Shiva Umis. Shh. B'shas it comes to the Shiva Umis, the 7 meters, you can conquer them with the Parsha Risheno Shel Krishma. Ve'ahavto es havaya lekecho b'chol levovcho. When you have Avet to Lekus, you mevatel the Avet to Dvorim Zorim. But when it comes to the Klipa of Amalek, you cannot conquer Amalek with Ve'ahavto. You have to go with the second Parsha of Krishma, which is Le'ovdei b'chol levavchem, the Aveda from the Evet Ne'emon. But what is the Aveda of Evet Ne'emon? That he is bottle, he has no Metzias. The Rebbe said there's the difference between Shaul and David. That Shaul, Olach HaCharatam, the Shaul said that he did everything what makes sense. But David HaMelech was bittul, Kabbalah Seil. And therefore the Rebbe said, to be mevatel, the clipper of Amalek, which only before Mashiach, is only through bittul, Evet Ne'emon. And that's the pshat. The Rebbe didn't want people to climb on a gartel of the Rebbe, and they'll climb to the Eichel of Mashiach, and they'll slap Mashiach down. The Rebbe did not accept any illusions like that. But the Rebbe said to Rabbi Chaim Gutnik, that I said in the Sicher for the bringing Tazriim et Seira. And what the Rebbe said there, to learn in Yoneh, Mashiach, and Geule, in Chassidus, in Pnimis HaTeire, in Lekudes Sichas, that will bring Mashiach. That means that, and the Rebbe said, what's the difference between an Eved and an Eyev? And the one who loves Hashem, because when the Eved, the Eibishter says to you something you hate, if you just are loving Hashem, you cannot do it. It's davar asanui, davar you hate, you will not do it. But the Eved will do whatever the Eibishter gives him. As David HaMelech said, Im kei yemer lecha fatzti, if the Eibishter doesn't want me, ineni, I'll accept it. And that's what the explanation, what's happening, the 30 years after Gimmel Tammuz. The Rebbe made an announcement of Ches Nisan, that there'll be an old time, there'll be a need for an old generation. Because what is Amalek, the Rebbe says, Yedees Ribeine Mechaven Limud Bey. The Rebbe said the Yidden, Cheto Egel, they saw Matan Tere, they saw Lekus, and yet they made the eagle. So what is the answer? Is only Am Kshe'eref Lemal Yuse, that they're going to be with Akshanes. That is the bittul of an Eved. And therefore, even to the last 30 years, that there is a dover asanui, that we don't like, we hate it, that we are sitting by the oil today and not with the Rebbe in 770 for Yud Alef Nissan. We hate the fact that we are here 30 years after Gimmel Tammuz, but yet we are akshanim, we are stubborn, we are all continue with our kashrus to Rebbe. We educate our children and grandchildren to go on shlichus, to go to the end of the world. And even Amalek could say, why are you going to a small place? There's no Jews there, there's no money there. Why are you going there? Why you have to do Yom HaChinuch? What's the big deal? A mayor is signing a paper. What's the big deal? Who cares? But whenever we do the Rebbe's Eiros, that is the Akshanim. When the Rebbe said 10 Akshanim, he didn't mean 10 kipshutai. The Rebbe started the Sikha, he said, there are 10 Yidden standing here, and Mashiach is not coming. There were hundreds of Yidden, but 10 is a number of an Eider, I represent all the Yidden. And therefore, that is what the Rebbe meant, that there will be another Shlav in Bias Mashiach, that before Mashiach comes, the entire the entire generation of Chassidus Chabad will have to go through the time of Akshonim, that we have to be stubborn, the Aveda from Evet Naaman, the Lamed what the Eibishter gives us, even though we don't see the Rebbe, we are mamshir the fullest kashrus. That is Yud Alef Nissan, the air for Rebbe. And that's what it's all about, that we, our generation. L'chaim, l'chaim.
Shekeach Rav Greenberg für die kurze Wörter. Die herzliche kurze Wörter. Shuva, Shuva, Hashem ad Masai ve'in.